Hi, my name is Angelica McMillan, and this lesson is an introduction to subject pronouns. So the first thing that we should look at are the subjects themselves in English. I have two columns here. The first column represents subjects, whereas the second column represents the subject pronouns. And just to be clear, a pronoun is a word that replaces a noun. So for instance, the first set of subjects are both I, both as a subject and a subject pronoun. The next one is you, both as a subject and a subject pronoun again. However, by the time we get to John, Mary, and the class, you can see that these subjects can be replaced by pronouns he, she, and it. We normally only replace subjects with their subject pronouns when we know we have established who we are referring to. So in other words, I cannot simply begin a sentence by saying he is learning to speak Spanish. I would first have to establish that he is in reference to the subject John. The next subjects are John and I. And these subjects can also be expressed with the subject pronoun we. The next examples I have are John and Mary, or the students, and these both can be replaced by they. And finally, I have John and you, and those subjects can be replaced with the pronouns you guys. In any case, I want to also just be clear about how we sometimes refer to these subjects when we are learning a language. I is often referred to as first person. You is also called second person. John, Mary, whether it be subjects or subject pronouns he, she, including the class and it, are oftentimes referred to as third person singular. John is learning Spanish. We are talking about another person, and that other person is singular. John and I, or we, is oftentimes called first person plural because it implies that it is I plus other people. In this case, it is I plus John, so it is first person plural. The next one is called third person plural, because we don't just have John in this case, we have John and Mary. And finally, we have John and you, which is often referred to as second person plural, because we have the second person you plus other people, in this case, John. So again, it is first person, second person, third person singular, first person plural, third person plural, and second person plural. So now let's look at these in Spanish. Again, just to review, we have the various subject pronouns in English here in the first column. In Spanish, we have the translation. So I becomes yo in Spanish. You'll notice that there are two forms of the subject pronoun you. The first one is tú, or you informal. The second one is usted, or second person formal. Then he is él, she is ella, and you'll notice that we don't have the form of it. It does not exist in Spanish, that subject pronoun, and that becomes really interesting once we start learning more about writing sentences in Spanish. The next form is we, which we have nosotros, and in Spanish you'll notice that this ends with an O, nosotros, and that is relating gender. And essentially we use this form of nosotros when we are talking about a group of all men, we as a group of all men, or a mixed group of men and women. Nosotras, which you'll notice ends in an A, is in reference to just women. We, but a group of just females. Then we have they, which again you'll notice has gender. Ellos, a group of all men or a mixed group of men and women. And then ellas, just a group of women. Finally, now we have you guys or ustedes. Now I want you to be careful with this because you should never confuse ustedes, you guys, you plus other people. Don't confuse this with usted. They look an awful lot alike, but they are used quite differently. Usted, as you see up here, is you formal. I am speaking to you, whereas ustedes is you guys. And there are only two subject pronouns in the Spanish language that I'm covering here that relate formality, usted, and informality, tú. None of the other subject pronouns, yo, él, ella, nosotros, nosotras, ellos, ellas, ustedes, none of those relate formality or informality. Some of you may have heard of the subject pronoun vosotros, but as you can see, I don't cover that in my lessons. Very well then, so then we have, again, just to review, yo, tú, usted, él, ella, nosotros, nosotras, ellos, ellas, ustedes. All right, so now let's just pause for a moment here. And before you continue, take a moment to memorize the subject pronouns you just learned in Spanish. Maybe you might want to make some flashcards. You might want to go back to the previous screens and review those by saying them over and over again or repeating them after me. In any case, pause, and when you're ready, continue this lesson to see some practice exercises. Very well. I take it that you are ready for some practice. And you'll notice that I have all the subject pronouns here in the column on the left, and I have left these answers here blank. So, how well did you memorize those subject pronouns? How well did you memorize the accents? Did you pay attention to the accent marks? If not, pause and go back and review where I place those accents. But if you're ready, begin to jot down your answers. Pause this presentation to give yourself some time. And when you're ready, continue to see the answers. Very well, so how did you do? Here we have your answers. Yo for I, tú, and here's that accent. Did you remember to put that in there? That's really important in Spanish to remember to have this accent mark here. And if you're not familiar with Spanish, you may be asking yourself why. Well, as you continue with your studies, that will become increasingly clear. We have usted, then él, the other subject pronoun that requires an accent mark. Notice that we're placing the accent marks over the vowels. Then she is ella. We have nosotros, nosotras. Make sure to include both. They, ellos, ellas, and you guys, ustedes. Well, that's all I have for you here in this lesson. I hope that you got greater understanding about subjects and subject pronouns in Spanish. And as always, I encourage you to keep learning.